So I just finished watching the first episode of Ironheart. Yes, I know. Disney's released 3 episodes so far, but it's a show that has me thinking and pondering a lot on the character of RiRi Williams, and so I want to take it in slow sips and savor them slowly as we wait for new episodes because I'm really enjoying the setup we've gotten so far. Now, to give added context, I am quite okay with admitting that I am one of the people who soon got burned out with the MCU. From always making it to the cinema to watch the movies back since the era of Iron Man 1, i.e. Phase 1, and, following it up by diving into the comics because I wanted to know more, to watching my interest in the MCU fizzle out by the time we got to, I think it's Moon Knight? Because I watched it, loved it, read all the Moon Knight comics, still pissed we didn't get new seasons, but yeah, that was around the time I sort of lost interest. Moon Knight was the last Disney Plus show I watched within the MCU, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness was the last movie I watched at the cinema. After that, I was pretty much meh about what came afterwards because I wasn't as invested in the characters we got to see within the shows and the movies. Their character arcs and story didn't move me as much. And before anyone asks, I unfortunately still haven't seen Wakanda Forever. I'm sorry. I went to the cinema, saw the poster, flashed back to Chadwick, and left before the opening credits started. I will watch it eventually now that I'm not as raw nor grieving the loss like I did back when it first released, but yeah, I haven't seen it yet. And of course, what this means is that I didn't get to see RiRi Williams' introduction in that movie. So, Ironheart is my first introduction to her. And I find that very interesting because from what I've seen of her so far, RiRi Williams is a character study on the folly of youth. How we think we know it all but don't, how that in turn causes problems in our wake, but those problems serve to help us grow and evolve into becoming better people, full-fledged adults who have learned from our experiences and can then embrace the rest of our lives, coming to terms with the mistakes of our past and how they've helped shape our future. And I don't know about you, but that is a character arc that always gets me. Hence the reason why I will most certainly be seated for Ironheart. Now, just in case you're not aware of this fact and I'm just bringing it to your notice, Ironheart, the Disney Plus show based off of the Ironheart comics that would see RiRi Williams take on the mantle of Iron Man, but in her own unique way because her story, her troubles, her limitations, and what she has to overcome in the telling of her story is quite different from Tony's own journey. So she's not Iron Man, she's her own person, Ironheart. And I bring this up because back when the trailer dropped and we were theorizing and piecing together what the story they're exploring in the show could be, I saw people already complaining about Riri's turn towards the criminal underworld. Minor spoilers, she does end up joining a certain villain's team unknowingly to her because she's just trying to raise money to upgrade her suit. And in those complaints, I always found myself smiling because the core difference between DC and Marvel heroes, and please know that I love them both, but the core difference between DC and Marvel heroes have always been that Marvel heroes were more aligned to the everyday man and what that entails, i.e. they have a more humanized approach with them. Their origins are sometimes very messy and very flawed. And it adds to their appeal because in that fight and struggle for them to become the glorified heroes known to the citizenry that they save and protect, they must first rise to become heroes in their own story. Iron Man, before he took on the mantle of the suit, was an arms dealer, one who was very successful at that. He sold his weapons to whoever could pay the most for it, and before he became a hero, didn't care what damage his weapons would cause. It's the core of his conflict with Wanda and Pietro because the missiles that killed her parents and almost killed her and her brother were Stark missiles. I know a lot of us have short-term memories, but please tell me we're not about to whitewash Tony Stark's image because of his heroism after he became Iron Man. Thor was a war-hungry dunderhead who wanted to fight against the Frost giants, a war that would have absolutely devastated Asgard and led to the death of so many of his people, a direct violation of what his father and King Odin wanted, which was why he stripped him of his powers, his title and Mjolnir, and tossed them both into Midgard. Natasha was an assassin and spy before she joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and later the Avengers. The Guardians were basically space pirates before they took on their mantle as heroes and guardians of the galaxy. I'm not saying that every single hero we got in the MCU all had shady pasts before they turned their lives around. But some of them did. And I see the fandom extend them, these adults, way more grace than they do to RiRi Williams. Which makes no sense because RiRi's story, like I said, is mostly about the folly of youths. She's, last I checked, and someone can please correct me if I'm wrong in this, but she should be 19. She got into MIT at 15 and her professor mentioned that she's been there for the past 4 years with no clear focus on graduating, so I'm fairly certain she's a 19-year-old. RiRi at this point is barely old enough to drive. She most certainly cannot buy a drink or vote at that age living in the US. She's at that nebulous point in life where she wants to be taken and seen seriously as an adult, but can't because technically she's still a child. Someone who's meant to be cared for and looked after. But that becomes a bit of a thorny issue because she also has one of the most brilliant minds in the world, which then means that you have a character, this youth, someone who is chomping at the bit to be seen and taken seriously, to be allowed to have serious responsibilities and make active change in the world rather than being dismissed out of hand, which is often the way in which we treat young people. And before you start arguing with me that that isn't the case, really think about it. Think about how easy it is for us as a society to dismiss a young person's concerns or objections or questions by telling them that they are too young to know any better. Like that phrase in itself speaks to the condescending way in which we interact with our youth. But imagine a phrase like that applying to someone with a truly brilliant mind, someone who believes that because she has the smarts and she's very well aware that no one else can keep up with her intelligence, or rather that few people in the world can be considered her intellectual equals. Is anyone surprised that that would come with a bit of arrogance, some cockiness thrown into the mix? And what happens when that grows, when that arrogance coalesces? Mistakes start happening because ultimately common sense isn't measured by your IQ, and that is a lesson that RiRi clearly has to learn and will learn within her story. I mean, I remember watching her grab onto the suit she had built for herself whilst at MIT as she blasted away, and all I could think as she was interacting with the AI built into the suit and said AI was asking her for her student information was the fact that, girl, didn't you just get expelled? You're legit going to be flying with an AI, having it power your suit and chart your course home when it's a proprietary asset of the school that just expelled you? So even though she was in a lot of pain when she crash landed after the school remotely shut down her access, I found myself cackling because that is unfortunately a lesson that RiRi has to learn, along with the bumps and the aches that come with it. It's the lesson that would be the driving force of her character arc before she's ready to take on the mantle. She's on the stereotypical part of the hero's journey, and before she can have her transformation that will take her from RiRi Williams to Ironheart, she has to go through these challenges and temptations that are part of said journey. And because she's young and considers herself brilliant and thinks she knows more than others, those challenges would often be as a result of her own hubris and youth. Because as much as she is brilliant, RiRi doesn't know everything. And that, I think, is a core part of the story that the show is basically putting in front of the audience that I think a lot of people seem to be missing. I've seen comments about how she's dismissive of Tony Stark's work and basically implies that he only got anything done because he's a billionaire. And to be fair, and in her defense, Tony's billions did go a long way. Like, sure, he built his first suit in a cave with scraps, but One, those scraps were from his own missiles, and two, an arc reactor is not cheap. But in addition to that, RiRi doesn't just want to make a replica of the Iron Man suit. One of the most brilliant people in the room, remember? What she wants is to build on it and improve on it, which means that she needs to be able to take the base structure of the suit even further. But in addition to that, having RiRi mouth off and pop up this comment about Tony is meant to subtly communicate to us that she's falling into that bit of a trap that we all often do, when we think that because someone has a very public profile, we know everything there is to know about them and their challenges. That often isn't the case. What we don't know about them, what goes on beneath the surface, is often way bigger than we could ever imagine. The reason why it's easy for a lot of us to react to that statement is because we have been following Tony's story alongside the rest of the Avengers. We've got the insider perspective because we were right there watching it all go down. RiRi doesn't actually have that luxury, and so she's going off of her perceptions, hence why they might seem wrong, because we know better. And the reason why we know better is because we've seen beyond what she can see. She's limited in her viewpoint, and as the audience, we are meant to see that. And her youth further narrows down her field of focus and exacerbates her impatience in getting things done so she can actually achieve what she wants to achieve and be taken seriously. It is the making of the tragedy that would be a part of her story when she finally realizes just what she signed up for and the epicness of the disaster that she's about to usher in. And she will. Because like I said, Marvel's storytelling has always favored the humanity of heroes who make mistakes, and part of their heroism is to try and make up for said mistakes. And I don't know about you, but that is definitely something I am really excited for. But that's just me, of course. Would love to hear your thoughts as well. Are you watching Ironheart so far? Are you enjoying it? Or is it not living up to your expectations? Would you have rather that it be a movie instead of a TV show? I would, as always, love to hear your thoughts, so please drop them in the comments. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. And until Monday's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.